The gladiator life sounds amazing until you realize most of your coworkers hoped you'd die on a Tuesday afternoon in front of a snack-eating crowd. In movies, gladiators are jacked demigods who win every fight, seduce a senator's daughter, and retire to a villa with a lion rug. In reality, being a gladiator was less warrior legend and more high-risk seasonal contractor with a really specific dress code. It was broken bones, brutal contracts, weird diets, and the constant possibility that tomorrow you'd either get a bonus or get dragged out through a door literally called the Gate of Death. And yes, that was its real name. Nobody in Rome believed in subtlety. Most gladiators were not proud warriors who chose glory. Most were slaves, prisoners of war, or debtors who ran out of options. Some, weirdly, were free men who signed up voluntarily, which sounds insane until you remember that regular Roman life for the poor was also brutal, unpaid, and short. So, when a recruiter showed up offering food, training, medical care, and a shot at fame, some guys looked at their farming life expectancy and thought, honestly, getting stabbed for money sounds like a promotion. And in some ways, it was. Gladiator schools, called ludi, ran like brutal but oddly professional training academies. You had a manager, a doctor, a trainer, and specific weapons classes, because gladiators weren't one job, they were several. A retiarius fought with a net and trident like an angry fisherman. A secutor fought heavily armored like a walking vending machine. Each fighting style had its own rules, its own gear, and its own fan base, because apparently ancient Rome also had favorite jersey numbers. Contracts existed. Some gladiators negotiated pay. Some had clauses about how many fights per year, how they could be treated, even how they could be killed if it came to that. Yes, Rome had HR paperwork for stabbing people. That sounds fair until you remember the job still ended in a sandpit soaked with actual blood. And the food was oddly specific. Gladiators ate a diet heavy in barley and beans, so heavy that Romans nicknamed them barley men. The idea was that a layer of fat helped protect nerves and blood vessels during a fight, so a wound looked dramatic without immediately being fatal. So gladiators were basically padded on purpose, like ancient Rome invented protective seasoning. Add in barley porridge, ash supplements believed to strengthen bones, and whatever meat scraps you could get, and you had a diet designed less for taste
and more for surviving a sword. Training was daily, exhausting, and specific. You practiced against wooden posts, you drilled footwork for hours, you learned exactly where a blade could go without killing someone. Because here's the twist nobody expects. Most gladiator fights were not death matches. Owners spent real money training these guys. Killing your investment in round one was terrible business. Fights were often more like professional wrestling with real weapons, choreography, showmanship, and a referee who could stop things before they went too far. If someone was clearly beaten, they could raise a finger asking for mercy, and the crowd or the sponsor decided whether they lived. Thumbs up, thumbs down, and no, historians still argue about which direction actually meant which, so even Rome's death signal had confusing customer service. But that mercy was not guaranteed, and battle wounds were still very real. Cuts, broken bones, infections, dislocated joints, and the occasional catastrophic injury that ended a career on the spot. Gladiator doctors were surprisingly advanced for the time, some even pioneering wound treatment and surgery techniques later used across the empire. Getting stabbed professionally apparently came with decent healthcare, small comfort when your job title was human target practice. Then there was the crowd, and this is where the fantasy really falls apart. Fans loved gladiators the way people love athletes today. Graffiti in Pompeii lists win records like sports stats. Some gladiators had fan clubs, some had merchandise, some had wealthy admirers sliding them gifts. Sound familiar? It should. Rome basically invented the celebrity athlete, minus the shoe deals and plus a much higher chance of dying at work. But most gladiators were not rich. Fame did not equal fortune. A star fighter might earn bonuses and prize money, but most gladiators stayed enslaved, controlled by an owner who kept the majority of any profits. You could be a household name in Rome and still not own your own household. And when the fight ended and you survived, there was no guaranteed retirement villa. Some gladiators fought for years, hoping to earn a wooden sword called a rudus, a symbol of freedom given for exceptional service. Getting one meant your fighting days were technically over. Some retired gladiators became trainers, some opened schools. Some, oddly, went back into the arena voluntarily because normal civilian life felt boring compared to fame, structure, and a paycheck, even a violent one. Which says something uncomfortable about how humans adapt to danger when it comes with applause.
Life inside the barracks had its own strange culture. Gladiators ate together, trained together, and depended on each other, even knowing some of them might eventually fight each other. Discipline was strict. Punishments could be brutal. Escape attempts were rare and usually ended badly because Rome did not take kindly to expensive property running off. But there was also loyalty, camaraderie, inside jokes, and probably some really dark gallows humor. Because when your job description includes public spectacle, humor is basically a coping mechanism with a mandatory attendance policy. Big fights were rare. Most gladiators fought a handful of times a year, not constantly, because keeping a trained fighter alive and functional was expensive and useful. Between fights, life was training, chores, meals, more training, and probably a lot of anxious waiting. Imagine an athlete's schedule crossed with a hostage situation, and you're getting close. Then came the arena days that mattered, and those were theater. Elaborate staged hunts, mock battles, mythological reenactments, and yes, real gladiator duels, all packed into a single event designed to overwhelm the senses. Trumpets, painted sets, animals imported from across the empire, and thousands of people screaming for entertainment paid for by whichever politician needed good publicity. Because that's the part people forget. These games were not just violence, they were political advertising with a body count. And through all of it, the sand remembered everything. Every scar, every cheer, every mercy granted or denied. A gladiator could train for years, survive dozens of fights, earn fame across the city, and still end up remembered only as a name scratched into old graffiti or a line in someone else's account of a spectacular afternoon. The crowd went home to dinner. The fighter went back to the barracks, wounds wrapped, waiting for the next contract, the next fight, the next chance the thumb went up instead of down. Rome loved its gladiators the way it loved its bread and circuses, generously, loudly, and without much concern for what happened to the person underneath the armor once the show ended. Glory was real, fame was real, but so was the sand, waiting quietly under all of it, for whoever the crowd decided not to spare.